Welcome back into the Sportsmemo College Football Every Game on the Board podcast, where we're breaking down 340, the next 20 games on the rotation number, with today's guest, Teddy Covers. Follow him on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. Teddy, welcome into the podcast.
Hey, great to be here, Drew.
Great to have you. We got a bunch of games going over, some good ones here on the college football slate, starting with 339-340 Tulane at Cincinnati. AAC matchup here, Teddy. We got Cincy laying 7 at home. This is a pretty good Cincy team, with Tulane off a huge win on the road, catching 7, 49 the total, Teddy.
So we were at a conference together right before the football season started. Of course, the Sports Review conference here in Las Vegas. IFBC, I believe it was called. And I got to a discussion about the Cincinnati Bearcats with a couple of guys who I respected at that conference. And I was like, I'm pro Cincy. I like Cincy. They're like, no, Cincy's no good. This Bearcats team, what's to like about them? Well, here's Cincinnati at the end, in October, 5-0 straight up, 1 win from bowl eligibility, 4-1 against the spread. The only game that they didn't cover might have been the most impressive when they rallied to beat Ohio. They only won that game by 4, a 7-point chalk. But what they had to do to win it was dig down deep, get stops against a good quarterback, and put points to the board. They're able to do that. I've been very impressed with Cincy this year. And it's not turnovers. It's not like they're dominating the turnover margin. The defense, only one game have they created more than one takeaway. But Luke Fickell's got this D playing well in Tulane's offense. Again, they ran all over Memphis last week. At home, big spot, big crowd. I think it'll be a little bit difficult for the Green Wave to match that same level against a defensive-minded coach who should have his charges ready to shut down the option.
Yeah, Teddy, Tulane's a tough-minded team. I like them, but I think it just all worked out for him last week because Memphis had a couple D linemen out. That's not the type of offense you want to go against with some defensive front guys out. So I think Tulane took advantage, got to give them credit, but coming up against Cincinnati, I agree with you. They're up against it. And Teddy, handicapping question for you. I will tell you, if I could go back in time, one thing I would do with that exact scenario you just explained, being high on Cincinnati and then letting people, I don't know if you let them talk you off of it.
Of course not. We were just arguing about it.
Okay. I have lost money over the last couple of years letting people talk me off of things, and then it will just come through. I've stopped listening to people in scenarios like that. You just block that out, or? Of
course. Look, You and I do this full time. I'm interested in other full-time bettors' opinions, especially at the start of the season, guys that I respect, especially at the start of the season where maybe they found a piece of information that I didn't find or vice versa. Before kickoff, I'll talk to everyone. After kickoff, I could just shut up. Let me, and I'll do my own, I'll make my own opinions. Thank you. So it wasn't, I cashed with Cincinnati on opening day against UCLA. I'm trying to remember if I had them. I've been tempted by them several times since, particularly the following week against Miami O, and didn't get to the window with them. When it's okay to listen to opinions. However, you need to have your own, and when your own opinion is strong, respect it.
Yeah, and that was a nice call against UCLA, calling Cincinnati on that one. I remember that one. But we'll move down the card here. 341, 342, Ohio, Kent State. MAC matchup here with the Ohio Bobcats laying 12.5 on the road, 70 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, and we got 4 MAC matchups here in a row. I'll go through them fairly quickly. Very impressed with Ohio U. Certainly offensively, Nathan Rourke. He's making plays all over the field right now. But big difference in defensive class between what they faced last week in UMass, what they're going to face this week against Kent. Kind of. UMass is, along with UConn, one of the weakest defenses in all of college football. Kent's defense certainly isn't good. Actually, I say a step down. They've given up 600 yards each of the last 3 weeks. The ugly loss to Penn State, the ugly loss to Mississippi where they got the money. And then last week I thought they might be live as they stepped down against Ball, and instead they gave up 52 points to the Cardinal. Hard for me to make a case for a team that can't stop anyone against an offense that can put up points in bunches.
Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan. Looks like Western Michigan just got hit, Teddy, up from 3.5 to 4 pretty much across the board now, 57.5 the total.
And I can understand the move. Eastern Michigan's really been up again. You look at their last 4 weeks, okay, and no bye during that span. Grinder against Purdue, they win on the final drive. Grinder against Buffalo, one-score game down to the final drive. Grinder against San Diego State. Was that an overtime game? Last week's game was the overtime game against Northern Illinois. Another Grinder game in which they lose by a field goal. So now it's back to back to back, 3 straight Grinder games. They lost at the end. That's not a good spot. And the offense couldn't get they can run the football, and that's about what they can do. Western's so young, they have skill position talent. They have a fair bit of skill position talent. I'm not in love with this defense by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly not like I want to lay points with them in a rivalry game. But offensively, they're a lot more explosive, and they were able to win at Miami, score 40 points last week, put up more than 550 yards in that game despite losing the turnover battle 2-0.
We got Buffalo Central Michigan. This one totaled at 51 with Buffalo laying 7 in the hook on the road.
Yeah, I mean, Central's bet against. This is not a good football team. Very young. Very, very young for John Bonomo this year. And the same thing with Western, in terms of MAC football, where, Central and Western at times over the last decade have been as good as any program in the conference. That's not the case in 2018. Although the Chippewas, despite the fact they've only won one game, they've been covering numbers as dogs. And there's certainly, there's a price to lay with Buffalo here, no question. But the spot for the Bulls coming off that embarrassment at home against Army where they just, they didn't show up from the get-go. That's coming off after 4 straight wins to open the season. We know how good Buffalo's been. Last week was the hiccup game. I can only lay with the road favorite in this one.
Last MAC game here, at least for this section here, Teddy, 347-348. Miami of Ohio at Akron. Looks like Akron laying 5 at home, 49 the total.
Yeah, a lot of respect for the Zips in this number, isn't there? And certainly from a spot standpoint. And remember, Akron's only played 3 games. Miami's only played 5. They played every week. They haven't had a bye. The Zips are coming off a bye, and they didn't play the opening week. Their game got canceled. And, of course, Akron, prior to the bye, straight up win at Northwestern, and then wire-to-wire cover at Iowa State, where the defense played really well in both of those ball games. They scored 3 TDs against the Wildcats. But, and you got to put the but there. It's not like Miami is chopped liver. And since they've stepped down in class the last 2 games, they blew out Bowling Green. They lost by 1 to Western. It's not a team that's easy for me to bet against in this price range, against a squad that I'm not convinced Akron is better of these 2 teams by any type of margin. So if I'm playing this one, I can only look at the road dog.
Teddy, big one here. Arguably the biggest game of the weekend. 349-350. We got Notre Dame at Virginia Tech. Looks like the Irish laying 6.5 on the road, 56.5 the total. A lot of people going to point to Lane Stadium night game, but Notre Dame, new quarterback Ian Book, kind of moving the ball. 2 straight covers, 2 straight wins, and 2 straight overs since the quarterback change. You think it continues here in Blacksburg Saturday night?
I'm not going to lay it. No, I don't think it continues. Certainly not at this level. I don't want to look at too much about a program. When you look at the long-term stats about a program, you don't want to freak out about it. But it's been pretty consistent even in the Brian Kelly era at Notre Dame. Fighting Irish are 3-15 straight up on the road versus ranked teams since 2006. And that's one I did double-check. They are not winning these games. And it's been pretty consistent. Now, this year's Irish team does look better. And the one year where Notre Dame made the playoffs and, lost to Alabama, that was the year they were winning games on the road against ranked teams. This Irish team has that level of potential. And Ian Book, his first 2 starts were great. 6 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, no INTs. This is a different environment playing in Blacksburg at night. And we saw a Virginia Tech secondary that got lit up, absolutely lit up by Old Dominion. Guess what? Last week against Duke, Farley, Quillen, Watts all played really well. They kicked out they kicked off their leading pass rusher, Trevin Hill, got kicked off the team after the loss to ODU. What happened last week? Hoshin Gaines come in and finishes with a career high 2.5 sacks. And of course Ryan Willis, the Kansas transfer, the former walk-on. This kid can't play quarterback. Duke's defense is pretty good. Willis came in, completed 17 of 27, 332, 3 scores, no turnovers, and he won ACC Quarterback of the Week honors in his first start on the road against a good defense. I'm surprised at all the Fighting Irish money that's coming in here. I expect this to be a competitive game.
Teddy, let's head to the bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten. Illinois, Rutgers. Looks like the Illini laying anywhere from 4.5 to 6 on the road, 49 the total.
Yeah, and it's been nothing but Illinois money, and I certainly understand that nobody wants Rutgers right now. No, certainly nobody wants Rutgers in a game where the Scarlet Knights need to win in order to cover the point spread. This is, I mean, for as bad as Illinois has been, I think that, this line's telling us the Rutgers program is clearly in weaker shape, which you don't often say when you're talking about a Lovie Smith team. There aren't many teams that are weaker than those. But, since Rutgers winning the opener, they've been outscored 52-3, 55-14, 42-13. And last week, a distracted Indiana team. They did score 17 in that ballgame, their best during that span, but we're still outgained by 160 yards. The question is, can you lay with Illinois? I mean, I know I don't want Rutgers, but it's an Illini team that's shown us they got a glass chin. It's not like they're even winning home games, let alone and this is their first true road game of the season. I can't lay this price for Illinois, even though I know they have more talent than their opponent. They're not a confident team, and they certainly are not a team that I trust to play well with the lead on the road in the fourth quarter. No, easy pass.
Teddy covers on with us and obviously knows his stuff, really good on the podcast. Teddy, we always get requests to have you on the podcast via Twitter, Facebook, whatnot, people jumping in saying, hey, have Teddy on. Great on the podcast, but I got to point out here, Teddy, I mean, you're over, 60% NFL and college football combined this year, 10-1, 91% sides in the NFL. So hats off to you, Teddy. And guys, check out sportsmemo.com for Teddy's best services, either 3-day, a week, a full season, discounted right now at sportsmemo.com. Wanted to get that out for you, Teddy. Let's head out west. We got 353, 354, San Diego State at Boise State. Looks like Boise laying 14 at home, 52 the total, Teddy.
Yeah, and I know there were guys tweeting at us and asking us about the Friday NFL pod. If you want my NFL stuff, I mean, listen to the Monday, the OLR. Every week you'll get all my NFL opinions in that particular podcast. And, of course, you will get good information at the start of the week. But we got a lot of other guys at Sports Memo that have to get their chance to talk about these games and get promoted. So, unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, I'd rather not do podcasts every. There's only so much podcast time in a world where you have a lot of handicapping to do. But I appreciate the comments. I appreciate the quotes. And again, you want my NFL stuff, you can get it every single Monday in the podcast, the opening line report. San Diego State and Boise. Well, my first reaction to this was, oh my God, that's a lot of points for San Diego State. It really is. Plus 14. That team's good. That team can hang with Boise. Then you start to look at what's actually happened in the season series. And last year's game was and it's not a season. They're on opposite sides of the Mountain West. They don't play every year. They did play last year, though, and it stood out to me because San Diego State was able to move the football against everybody last year, not against Boise. There was a defensive score. There was a special team score, but Rashad Penny, who ended up being, a first-round NFL draft choice, the only game all year that he got shut down last year came against Boise, and the Broncos won that game 31-14 in San Diego. So you're like, all right, well, what happens this time? Obviously Boise's been real good so far. San Diego State is certainly, a team that we continue to have a lot of respect for. Rocky Long in the underdog role is a role we like him in. But the Aztecs playing with their backup quarterback. They're playing with their backup running back. They're going up against a Boise team that's dominated them. And this year's Bronco squad, hey, I want Boise on the road more than I want them at home, the opposite of the way it used to be for the Broncos. But Boise's not looking past his opponent. They're not going to take San Diego State lightly, and Boise defensively has the potential to really shut this team down.
Yeah, Boise, you pointed out, outside of, I believe, the second half against Oklahoma State, they've been lights out, and San Diego State kind of up against it in terms of injuries. So I'm with you with Boise, not looking to bet against them. But we got 355, 356, Arizona State, Colorado in the Pac-12 here. This one's interesting, Teddy. I mean, Colorado, 2.5 at home, 64 the total. Herm Edwards, he's been surprising, at least out of the gate. You think it continues here?
So real quick, when you talk about Oh gosh, I lost my train.